In a world where money attracts the wrong people, one billionaire chooses to hide his wealth and finds the one woman who sees his heart. But when the truth comes out, love shatters. Will he win her back or lose her forever? Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Caro sat in the back of the black car, watching the city slide by like a movie he had seen too many times. Glass towers, bright billboards, polished cars, expensive people. All of it belonged to him in one way or another, yet he felt like a stranger who had walked into the wrong life. His phone lit up again. Another message from some woman calling him my king after meeting him once at a charity ball. Another from a cousin asking for a small loan of $20 million. Caro locked the screen and leaned his head back. They don't even know me, he muttered. His driver glanced at him in the mirror. Sir? Caro shook his head. Nothing, James. Just thinking. At the office, everyone called him Sir Caro or Chief. Nobody asked if he had eaten. Nobody cared if he slept. They only saw the title, Billionaire CEO of CaroCore Holdings. That afternoon, his board members had smiled too widely, laughed too loudly at his jokes, and applauded every sentence he said. He could hear the hunger behind their respect. Money. Power. Access. He was a walking door they wanted to push open. He sighed. Turn left, he suddenly told James. We're not going home yet. James hesitated. Left, sir? That road leads to the old industrial area. Caro nodded, staring out at the rougher part of the city ahead. Exactly where I want to go. The smooth asphalt gave way to broken, patchy roads. Small workshops lined the street, panel beaters, spray painters, mechanics with greasy hands and loud laughter. Children ran between cars, chasing a punctured ball. The air smelled of engine oil, dust, and roasted corn from a woman's stand at the corner. Caro rolled the window halfway down and let the noise wash over him. No one looked twice at the car here. They were busy with real problems. Stop there, he said, pointing at a faded sign that read Timo's Garage. The building was old, its blue paint peeling, but the yard was busy. Men in overalls argued playfully, a radio played an old love song, and a girl in a long orange dress balanced 3 plates of food on one hand. Sir, are you sure? James began. Yes. Park over there and wait. Caro stepped out, feeling the rough ground under his expensive shoes. He had made this choice last night, alone in his penthouse, looking down at the tiny lights of the city. 1 month. 1 month to hide from the gold diggers, the fake smiles, the greedy friends. 1 month to breathe like a normal man. He had already planned the details. No one at the office knew. He had told the board he was going on a private retreat to think about a major merger. Only his lawyer knew the full truth, and even he didn't like it. This is dangerous, Caro, the man had warned. If anything happens to you, Caro had simply replied, then at least something real happened to me. Now, as he crossed the yard, he felt eyes turn to him. He realized he still looked too polished in his crisp shirt and watch. A man with a big stomach and a larger voice walked up to him, wiping his hands on a dirty rag. Afternoon, boss. Your car get problem? He asked. His name tag said Timo. Caro smiled carefully. Not exactly. I'm actually looking for work. The laughter that followed was loud and sharp. Work? Another mechanic repeated, almost choking. Here. Timo studied Caro more closely. You day joke with me? Caro shook his head. I can fix things. I worked in a small shop before I moved. The lie slid easily. He had grown up in a tiny neighborhood where everyone fixed something to survive. He had watched old men repair radios, fans, old cars. He had never done the work, but he had watched closely. Besides, he had spent the last month secretly learning from online videos every night. Money had bought equipment. Loneliness had bought time. Timo scratched his beard. You want to be mechanic? You? Caro nodded. Yes. For 1 month. You don't have to pay me much. Just give me a chance. The other mechanics looked at each other, amused. One of them whistled. Oga Timo, si fine boy mechanico. Another shouted. He go use perfume for engine oil. Laughter broke out again. Caro chuckled quietly, accepting the joke. For the first time in a long while, people were laughing at him, not because they wanted a favor, but because he looked ridiculous. It felt strangely refreshing. Timo narrowed his eyes. What's your name? Caro swallowed. He couldn't say CaroCore, the name on every business magazine. He chose quickly. Mayan, he said. A name his grandmother had once called him when he was small. Simple, soft, and unknown to the media. Mayan, Timo repeated, tasting it. Where you from? River Edge, Caro answered truthfully. The poor part of the city he had climbed out from. That seemed to soften Timo a bit. We full here already, but... He looked over Caro's shoulder and shouted. Liku. A thin young man with a bright smile jogged over. Yes, boss? Show this Mayan how to change oil. If he spoil we send him away. Simple. As Liku led him toward a dusty corner of the yard, Caro felt eyes still following him. You really want to work here? Liku asked, curious rather than rude. Yes, Caro replied. I need a break from my old life. You running from something? Liku teased. Or someone. Caro smiled faintly. Maybe both. They arrived at an old sedan on a jack. A toolbox sat open beside it. Okay, new guy, Liku said, squatting beside the car. First lesson. Cars no care about your fine shirt or your perfume. If you want to work here, you go stain. Caro looked down at his clothes and nodded. Then I'll stain. He removed his watch and slipped it into his pocket, then rolled up his sleeves. As Liku began to explain the steps, Caro listened carefully, asking questions, repeating the actions. He wasn't perfect, but he learned quickly, surprising Liku. You sure say you never do this before? The younger man asked. I watched a lot, Caro replied. After an hour, his hands smelled of oil and his shirt carried dark smudges. Sweat clung to his neck. Strangely, he felt lighter. Then he heard a soft voice from behind. Liku, your food is getting cold. He turned. The girl in the orange dress stood there again, holding a metal tray with 2 plates of rice and stew wrapped in nylon. Her headscarf had slipped a little, releasing a few tight curls around her forehead. Her skin was a deep brown, smooth and unbothered by makeup. Her eyes were big, clear, and sharp, like she saw everything and judged nothing too quickly. Ah, Lomi. Liku grinned, jumping up to take the tray. I even know when time reach. He looked at Caro. This is my sister. Lomi gave Caro a brief, curious glance. New mechanic? She asked. Try me mechanic, Liku answered, laughing. His name is Mayan. Lomi nodded once. Welcome, she said politely. Her voice had a calm warmth that settled something inside Caro. Thank you, he replied. He expected her to stare at his stained shirt or soft hands, but she didn't. She only looked him in the eye for a moment, then turned back to her brother. Eat before it gets cold, she scolded gently. You'll start shaking like last time. Liku rolled his eyes. See this girl? One time I almost faint, she no go let me rest. Lomi shook her head and began to turn away, the tray now empty. Impulsively, Caro spoke. Do you sell food? She stopped and faced him again. Yes. I cook for the workers here and for the shops nearby. There was no pride and no shame in her voice. Just simple truth. Can I buy a plate too? He asked. Her brows rose slightly. You just came. Already hungry. Liku laughed with his mouth full. Leave Lomi. Work way he day do today no be small. She gave a tiny smile that changed her whole face. Fine. I'll bring yours. As she walked away, Caro watched the way she moved, steady, unhurried, as if she carried her own rhythm that nobody could disturb. She wore simple slippers, her dress slightly faded at the edges, but she walked like a queen in her own small kingdom. Close your mouth, Liku teased quietly. She go think fly enter. Caro blinked and looked away, embarrassed. She's nice, he said. Lomi? Yes, she's the serious type. She no get time for nonsense. Liku lowered his voice. And she no even look at men twice, so don't waste your crush. Caro chuckled. Who said I have a crush? Liku shrugged. I see things. A few minutes later, Lomi returned with a plate wrapped in plastic. Here, she said, holding it out. You can pay at the end of the day. If you survive. Caro accepted the food, the warm weight of it somehow comforting. Thank you, he said. How much? 1,000, she replied. It was cheap for him. So cheap it almost felt like stealing. At the restaurants he usually visited, one meal could cost more than her whole day of sales. Okay, he said. I'll pay you later. She nodded and turned to go, but something in his voice pulled her back. You're not from here, she observed, studying him properly now. Your accent is different. Caro forced a small laugh. Is it that obvious? You say your words like you're in a meeting, she said. Like you're choosing them carefully so no one can argue with you. He froze for a second. She had pinned him with 2 sentences. Old habit, he replied lightly. My last boss liked perfect answers. Lomi's mouth twitched. If you want to last here, you should learn to give imperfect answers. Life in places like this doesn't follow perfect plans. I'll remember that, he said quietly. She gave a brief nod and walked away, her orange dress catching the afternoon sun. For the rest of the day, as he struggled with nuts and bolts, engines and grease, Caro found his thoughts turning to the girl with the calm eyes and sharp words. She had looked at him like a person, not a bank. She had noticed his accent, not his clothes. And she had not smiled too widely. By evening, his back ached and his hands throbbed, but there was a small, stubborn pride in him. He had loosened real bolts, wiped real sweat, and stained his own shirt with honest work. Timo approached as the men began to pack up. "You Mayan," he called. "You're still here." "Yes, sir," Caro replied. "I'm not fired?" Timo grunted. "Not yet. You learn fast. You still handle wrench like pen, but we go train you." The other men laughed. "Come tomorrow by 7, Timo continued. "No African time. We open early." Caro nodded. "I'll be here." As he left the yard, he saw Lomi washing plates in a big plastic bowl near a small kiosk. A few women sat nearby, counting money and gossiping. He hesitated, then walked toward her. "Lomi," he called softly. She looked up, water dripping from her hands. "Yes." "The food was very good," he said. "Best thing that happened to me today." One of the older women nearby giggled. "See as he day talk like film." Lomi hid a small smile. "You're welcome. You can pay now." He handed her a note, more than the amount she had said. She frowned. "This is too much." "Consider the rest appreciation for your cooking," he replied. "And for your advice." She stared at the money, then at him. "I don't need extra. Just pay what I said." Her firm tone surprised him. "You don't want more?" he asked. Most people he met were always pushing for more. "I work with agreed prices," she said simply. "If my food is worth more, I'll increase the price for everyone. I don't want to pretend it's cheap just to collect extra from some people." Caro slowly took back the extra notes and gave her exactly 1,000. "You're very honest," he said. "It's just easier," she replied. "Lies take energy to maintain. I'm already tired." The older women laughed, but there was understanding in their eyes. "Good night, Mayan," Lomi said, tucking the money into a small purse. "Don't quit after one day. Timo doesn't like weak people." "I'm not weak," he replied quietly. "We'll see," she said, then turned back to her plates. As Caro walked back to the car where James waited, he felt oddly exposed. Lomi had refused extra money without knowing he could buy her whole kiosk 10 times over. She hadn't tried to impress him or charm him. She had just been herself, tired, honest, practical. He sat in the back seat, staring at his oily hands. "Sir, are we going home now?" James asked carefully. Caro took a deep breath. "Yes. And from tomorrow, call me Mayan when we're near this area." James' eyes widened in the mirror. "Yes, sir." That night, in his glass-walled penthouse, the city lights blinked below like distant stars. Caro stood at the window, still in his stained shirt, his mind replaying the day. The boardroom with its fake smiles felt like another planet. His mate had gasped when he walked in. "Sir, what happened?" "Are you okay?" she had cried. "I'm fine," he had said. "I was learning something new." He had sent her away quickly. Now he poured himself a glass of water and sat on the edge of the massive bed that always felt too big for one person. His phone buzzed with messages, friends asking about a party, an ex-girlfriend sending a picture of herself in a new dress, the board chairman reminding him of a short call with an investor tomorrow. Caro switched the phone off and tossed it aside. In his head, he heard Lomi's voice. "Lies take energy to maintain. I'm already tired." He smiled faintly. If only she knew how large his lies really were. He was not just Mayan, the new mechanic. He was the man whose company owned half the billboards on their street. The one whose name she might have heard on the news, if she ever watched it. 1 month, he whispered to himself. Just 1 month of being nobody. The next morning, Caro arrived at Timo's garage at 6:30, wearing cheap jeans and a plain gray t-shirt he had bought online with a fake name and delivered to a different address. He had left his watch at home. His car was parked 2 streets away. He had walked the remaining distance to avoid attention. Lika was surprised to see him so early. "Ah, Mayan. You serious? Oh," he said, yawning. "Some people don't come back after day 1. "I'm not some people," Caro answered. He enjoyed the simple sentence more than he expected. It felt honest. As the morning went on, Caro learned to change a tire faster, to recognize certain sounds in engines, to find small leaks. He made mistakes, but he kept asking questions, kept trying again. The men teased him, but slowly. Their jokes shifted from mocking to accepting. He was becoming one of them, at least on the surface. Around midday, the familiar orange dress appeared at the gate. Lomi walked in with her tray, already surrounded by hungry eyes. "Lomi, my angel, bring me extra meat today," one man shouted. "Pay first," she replied without looking at him. "I know you." When her eyes landed on Caro, a flicker of surprise crossed her face, quickly replaced by calm. "You came back," she said. "You sound surprised," he replied, wiping his hands on a rag. "Most fine boys don't like suffering for long," she said. "After one day of real work, they remember they have better things to do." He smiled. "Maybe I don't have better things to do." "Everybody has something better to do," she countered. "Some of us just can't reach it yet." He didn't know how to answer that, so he just said, "I'd like to buy food again." "You can line up with the others," she said. "No special treatment here." He joined the rough circle of workers waiting as she served. She never mixed up an order, never cheated anyone, never gave extra credit. She collected her money and gave change with quick fingers. When it was his turn, she handed him a plate. "Still 1,000, she said. "If you like it, you can come to my kiosk in the evening. I sell dinner too." "Where is it?" he asked. She pointed down the road. "Next to the small pharmacy. Yellow umbrella. You can't miss it." "I'll try," he said, and he meant it. "Don't try. Either come or don't," she replied, but there was a faint amusement in her eyes this time. Days began to find a rhythm. In the mornings, Caro was Mayan the mechanic, sweating in the sun, scraping his knuckles, laughing at dirty jokes, learning how to listen to a car's complaints like it was a patient. In the evenings, he sometimes walked to Lomi's kiosk, a small wooden stand with a yellow umbrella that had seen better days. There, she sold rice, beans, fried plantain, and sometimes a thick pepper soup that made his eyes water and his heart feel strangely full. The first time he went, she raised an eyebrow. "So you chose come instead of don't," she said. "Yes," he replied. "Your food pulled me." "It's just food," she answered. "Don't make it sound romantic." "What if it is romantic?" he teased. She looked at him for a long moment. "You talk like someone who reads too many books," she said. "Or watches too many films." "Maybe I do both," he admitted. "Where do you find time?" He shrugged. "Nighttime is long when you can't sleep." Something in her eyes softened briefly, then closed again. "Don't stand there blocking others," she said. "Order or go." He ordered. He stayed. He ate on a wooden bench nearby, and they talked between customers, about small things at first like weather, street gossip, and noisy neighbors. Slowly, the small things grew. He learned that Lomi and Liku lived with their mother in a rented two-room house. Their father had died 3 years ago in an accident at a construction site. Since then, Lomi had become the unofficial head of the family, cooking and selling food while her mother sewed clothes at home. "What about you?" she asked one evening, wiping a table. "Where is your family, Mayan?" The question landed heavier than she intended. He looked down at his half-finished plate. "My parents are gone too," he said softly. That much was true. "I left home early. Tried to build my own life." "Did it work?" she asked. He hesitated. "Yes," he said slowly. "But sometimes I feel like I built a very tall house with no people inside it." She studied him carefully. "You talk like you have money problems," she observed. "But your problems sound too clean." He laughed quietly. "What do money problems sound like?" "They sound like, my landlord is shouting again, or we will eat only Gary this week, or they cut our light and exam is tomorrow," she replied. "Your problems sound like silence and big windows." The accuracy shook him. "Maybe I've met both types," he said, choosing his words with care. "Maybe that's why I'm here. To remember the second type." She nodded slowly. "You're still strange," she concluded. "But you work hard. That counts for something." As the weeks passed, Mayan the mechanic became part of the daily picture at Timo's garage. He learned how to tease Timo without crossing the line, how to joke with the men, how to fix a stubborn bolt with trick and not just strength. Customers began to recognize him. "Where that quiet one?" they would ask. "The tall one with the serious face." Sometimes, when he forgot himself, Caro felt happy. Happy in a way that had nothing to do with profit reports, stock prices, or magazine covers. Just tired, hungry, and satisfied after a long day of honest work. But outside the garage, his other life pressed in. He still had late-night calls with his lawyer, secret video meetings with senior managers who thought he was somewhere in the mountains. He approved major deals from his laptop, his camera off, pretending to have bad network. "You're walking a thin line, Caro," his lawyer warned one night. People will start asking questions. Let them, Caro replied. I told you. It's 1 month. 3 weeks have passed already. I will go back soon. And this girl you mentioned, Lomi? The lawyer asked carefully. What about her? Caro stiffened, though they were speaking over the phone. You said she's different. Caro imagined Lomi's steady eyes. She is, he said. Does she know who you are? No. And when will you tell her? Silence stretched between them, heavy and real. One evening, after a long, hot day, rain finally came. It started as a gentle drizzle, then grew into a hard, drumming downpour that turned the dusty yard into muddy rivers. Timo shouted orders. Men rushed to move cars under the shed, and Lomi arrived late, her umbrella almost useless against the wind. By closing time, the rain was still pouring, and the street outside the garage was half flooded. How will you get home? Caro asked her as they stood under the shed, watching the water rise. I'll walk, she said. It's not far. This is not normal rain, he protested. The water is almost at your knees out there. We've seen worse, she replied. The landlord's house sits on small ground. Ours is lower. Water will enter if I'm late. I need to get there fast. He looked at the dark street, then at her thin slippers. Let me call a taxi for you, he offered. She shook her head. Taxis don't like this area when it floods. They double the price. I don't have extra money to throw into water. I'll pay, he insisted. No, her refusal was sharp. I don't like depending on people like that. Today they pay, tomorrow they want something back. He swallowed the urge to tell her he could pay for her entire street to be rebuilt. Instead, he took a breath. Then at least let me walk with you, he said. If something happens on the road. What will you do? She cut in, eyebrows raised. Fight the water? He smiled despite the tension. Maybe. Or at least you won't be alone. She studied his face, rain misting the air between them. Finally, she sighed. Fine. But if you fall in a gutter, I'll laugh first before I help you. Fair, he replied. They stepped into the rain together, water immediately soaking their clothes. The street lights flickered weakly. They waded through brown water, careful of hidden holes. Cars crawled past, sending waves that slapped at their legs. This city is wicked, Lomi muttered. When dry, it burns us. When wet, it tries to drown us. Why don't you move? He asked, raising his voice over the rain. To where? She demanded. We pay small rent here. My mother's customers know our house. If we move, we start again. Starting again isn't always bad, he said. Says the man who can disappear for 1 month to be a mechanic, she replied. Some of us don't have the space to play with our lives. Her words hit him harder than the rain. He realized she saw his escape as something like a luxury. Maybe it was. As they turned into a narrow, darker street, a sudden flash of headlights came too close. A car sped through the water, splashing them from head to toe. Lomi stumbled, her foot sliding on something slick. Without thinking, Caro grabbed her arm and pulled her close to steady her. For a second, they were pressed together, rain pounding on their heads, their faces inches apart. Her eyes widened in the dim light. Easy, he said softly. Careful. She swallowed, her voice lower now. You didn't have to walk with me, she said. You could have gone home to your quiet house with big windows. He smiled faintly, surprised she had remembered that line. Maybe I didn't want to go there yet. Why? She asked. He hesitated, then answered honestly. Because I like being around you. The rain softened around them, turning from a roar to a steady curtain. Lomi looked away, her lashes heavy with water. Mayan, she said slowly. I don't play with feelings. I don't have time for it. If you're just bored and want someone to talk to until your life becomes interesting again, say it now. That's not it, he said. Then what is it? She asked. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The words I'm a billionaire hiding in your world stayed trapped behind his teeth. Instead, he said, you make me feel like I'm not just a name on paper. Like I'm a person. They stood in silence for a moment, rain dripping from their clothes. Lomi's expression softened just a little. You are a person, she said. Even if you talk like a walking speech sometimes. He laughed quietly. I'm trying to talk less like that. You're improving, she admitted. Slowly. They kept walking. When they finally reached her house, the water was already creeping toward the small doorway. She hurried inside, calling for her mother. Caro waited outside, then helped them stack bricks and old blocks to raise the most important things away from the floor. He didn't mind the mud under his nails. He didn't mind the cold. He just minded the way Lomi's shoulders were tense with worry, and how her mother's hands shook as she tried to protect a sewing machine that was older than Caro's entire company. When they were done, Lomi walked him back to the gate. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You didn't have to do all that." "You've been feeding me for weeks," he replied. "This is small." She looked at him, really looked at him. "You confuse me, Mayan," she said. "One minute you look like every other struggling man I know. Next minute you talk and act like someone else." His chest tightened. "Is that a bad thing?" he asked. "I don't know yet," she answered honestly. "But I'm watching." The next morning, the sun returned with a harsh brightness that made the previous night's storm feel like a forgotten dream. The garage yard was muddy, but the men were already laughing and shouting as if nothing unusual had happened. Caro arrived early, but his steps felt heavier. He knew time was running out. His 1-month escape was almost over. His phone had exploded with messages from his board. Urgent meetings, financial decisions, public appearances he could no longer delay. As he worked beside Liku, tightening bolts that refused to listen, his thoughts spun around Lomi. Her honesty, her sharp eyes, her refusal to take extra money, her stubborn courage. He wanted to tell her everything before someone else told her in a cruel way. But he feared losing the only person who had treated him like a man, not a wallet. Around noon, Timo shouted, "Mayan, you get visitor." Caro froze. He had told no one where he was. When he stepped out of the shed, his stomach dropped. His lawyer stood near the gate, dressed in a clean suit that looked ridiculous among oil drums and tires. "Caro," he said loudly, forgetting the mechanic name. Several heads turned. Lomi, who had just entered with her food tray, stopped moving. Her eyes snapped to him in a sharp, stunned silence. Everything he feared was happening too fast. "Mayan." Lomi's voice was quiet but cutting. "What did he just call you?" The lawyer cleared his throat, realizing his mistake too late. "Caro, we need to talk. Investors are arriving tomorrow. The press is waiting for your statement. You can't hide here anymore." The entire garage went silent. Timo's rag dropped from his hand. Lika's mouth fell open. And Lomi just stood there, her fingers tightening around the tray. Caro stepped toward her slowly. "Lomi, I can explain." "Explain what?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Explain why a man with a suit is calling you Caro? Explain why he says investors are waiting for you? Explain why he talks to you like you own a company." He swallowed. "Because I do." Her face froze. He forced himself to continue. "My full name is Caro Sula. I'm the CEO of CaroCore Holdings." A murmur rippled through the yard. Someone whispered, "The billionaire?" Another said, "Ah, we've been calling Billionaire Fine Boy Mechanic for weeks." But Lomi didn't laugh. She didn't blink. She stared at him like he was a stranger wearing Mayant's skin. "So everything was a lie?" she asked quietly. "The clothes, the job, the stories you told me, everything?" "Not everything," he said quickly. "My feelings." "Don't," she cut in sharply. "Don't talk about feelings right now." She set her food tray down slowly, her movements controlled like someone holding glass that could break any second. "Why?" she asked. "Why pretend to be poor? Why walk in rainwater to my house? Why sit on that wooden bench eating my food like you couldn't afford a hotel chef?" He stepped closer, but she stepped back. "Because I couldn't breathe in my real life," he said. "Everyone around me wanted something: money, power, connection. Nobody looked at me. They only looked at my position. I wanted a month to be seen as a man, not a name." Lomi shook her head. "So you came here to use our world as your playground?" "No," he said desperately. "I came here to find myself." "And you used a lie to do it," she replied. "You walked into our life with a clean shirt and a story that wasn't yours." Her voice trembled now. "I told you things. I trusted you. I thought you understood struggle." "I do," he whispered. "I grew up in River Edge. You grew out of it," she snapped. "And now you're so far above us that your lies look small to you." He felt her slipping away with every heartbeat. "Lomi, I didn't lie to hurt you. I lied because I cared too much about what you would think if you knew the truth." She laughed softly, but the sound had no joy. "And now you know exactly what I think." For a long moment, they stood facing each other, surrounded by silent onlookers who pretended to fix cars while clearly watching every second. The lawyer coughed awkwardly. "Caro, the car is waiting. We really must." "Not now," Caro snapped, then turned back to Lomi. "Tell me what I can do," he pleaded. "Anything. Just tell me how to fix this." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. "You can't fix this," she said. "Trust is not a tire you patch in 10 minutes. His breath faltered. I'll quit the company. I'll stay here. Don't be foolish, she said. Your world is too big. This garage is too small to hold it. She picked up her tray. You should go back to where you belong. He reached for her arm, but she stepped out of reach. Mayan was a man I could have cared about, she said softly. Caro is someone I don't know. With that, she turned and walked away, slow, steady, not looking back. The yellow umbrella of her kiosk seemed far, far away now. Caro stood there, feeling something break inside him with a clean, painful snap. He had survived business wars, hostile investors, and global crises. Yet losing Lomi with one sentence felt like his strongest defeat. The lawyer touched his shoulder gently. Come, he said. It's time. Caro left the garage in silence. The ride back to his glass penthouse felt longer than any journey he had ever taken. Reporters waited for him. The board cheered his return. Flashing cameras blinded him as he stepped into meetings filled with numbers and applause. He answered every question, signed every document, approved every deal. But inside, he felt nothing. At night, he stood at his large window, looking down at the city he owned, and thinking of the girl who had looked him in the eye without fear. He reached for his phone more than once, wanting to call her, to apologize again, to beg for one more chance. But he didn't press send. Some things could not be repaired by money or wishes. Some truths arrived too late. In the quiet darkness of his penthouse, he whispered the name she knew him by, Mayan, as if saying it could bring him back to the only place he had ever felt real. But the echo faded, and he realized that the month he spent at Timo's garage had given him something his billions never could, the truth about himself. And the truth was this: he had found love as a simple man, and lost it as the wealthy man he truly was. The story of Mayan and Lomi ended there. Not with a kiss, not with revenge, but with a heartbreak he would carry for the rest of his life. Please, like, share, and subscribe.